All right, it is time. Hello, everyone. My name is Carol Reese, and I am the Clinical Communications Director for Sinclair. And if you have been on my webinars in the past, I have a little bit of a kind of a different setup. So I am not home. I'm actually traveling. So I'm in a hotel, which makes me slightly nervous. Just wanting to make sure the Wi-Fi is going to be strong. So if for some reason I'm breaking up and you can't hear me, I would love for one of you guys to just write in the chat that, you know, my video is breaking up, just so I can get that under control. I'm just hoping that that will not be the case. So welcome, thank you so much for joining. Today we're going to be going through our brand new device, really excited, which is our Elysion diode for hair removal. It's unbelievable, so I can't wait to share all of this with you. It's definitely going to be a more of a clinical talk on it, you know, really going through the details of how it's working with the hair, you know, the breakdown of what a diode is and what a laser is, and why it's incredible, pretty much. So I'm going to share my screen with you and share my PowerPoint. Also, just bear with me a little bit in the beginning as people join. Usually they join a little bit later. I will sometimes just be stopping just to admit people in, which you may not even notice, but just in case, I just wanted to give you the heads up. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so by Sinclair, it is the Elysion that we're going to go through. And here are all like kind of the specs on the device, not fully specs, but like why it's so amazing. And then a lot of these things I'm going to break down in future slides. So the Elysion, it's incredibly powerful at 2,000 watts, which is one of the most powerful diodes in the market. So that is huge for a few reasons. One, the power of it makes it really fast, and the power of it not only makes it fast, but at the same time, we have the ability to have really short pulse durations, which I'll talk about in a few slides of why that's so important when you're treating for hair removal, especially like light and fine hair. It is good on all skin types, so we can treat skin types 1 through 6 all the way up to African skin types very, very safely. And we have very precise cheat sheets to where even testing them and getting to your endpoint is very quick for skin type fixers, which is a lot of times harder with other technologies. Multiple wavelengths. Right now we have the wavelength is in the handpiece. So the system, you know, the system's a system, and then it depends on what handpiece you plug into the system where you get different wavelengths. So right now we have 810 nanometers, which I'm going to explain that in a bit if you're not really, if you don't know like wavelengths all that well. I'm going to go through that in more detail. And then in the future, actually coming pretty soon, we're going to have a blend where it has 3 different wavelengths in one handpiece. And that is going to be just really, really extra safe and great for your darker skin types. So if you have a clinic primarily with like skin type 4, 5, and 6, Hispanic skin, Asian skin, Indian skin, African skin, Middle Eastern skin, that will be a great handpiece to have, although the 810 can still treat every skin type safely. Efficacy, so we have a gliding motion and we have a painting motion. So I'll show you what I mean by both of those. I actually have a video of it. Safe and effective, incredibly safe. And then easy to learn, so easy to learn, especially if you already know hair and how hair removal works, which if you don't, you're going to know today anyways. But the system is so easy to learn, easy to use. The cheat sheets are precisely made for you, so there's really no guesswork with the system. It's very intuitive. And then very high ROI. Why? Because 1, it's incredibly fast. I have a slide on that, how long it takes for like full legs and upper lip, so on and so forth. So it's incredibly fast. So your patients are really going to be in and out. But additionally, because it's a diode laser, it's never going to die. We don't have like we don't have to have a cap on how many pulses the handpiece has. So there's really no consumable to purchasing the system. You don't have to replace your handpiece. You're using very little ultrasound gel, very thin layer. So really no consumable. So really all of the ROI that you're generating is yours, which is a lot because the system is so effective, but also so fast, which is huge. And if you're already a customer and you have one of our platform systems, so maybe IPL for hair removal, where this is a great time to consider the Elysion is when you could have another room running for hair removal and to be using your B10, B20, B30 system for other treatments like contouring, like cellulite, or the IPL like pigmentation and vascular lesions and acne and skin rejuvenation. And then one room can just be really blowing through hair removal really quickly to generate that really good revenue for you. So that's where it would really make sense. Okay, so it is a laser. So what is a laser? It stands for, it's an acronym, but it stands for light amplification of stimulated, sorry, let someone into the, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So long acronym, but that's what laser stands for. And I'll break down really what that means. And a laser is monochromatic, coherent, and collimated. So I will explain that too. It's different than an IPL. So if you already have an IPL, if you have our IPL, the monochromatic, the coherent, and the collimated, that's what makes laser and IPL different. So it is a light-based technology, just like an IPL is, just like most lasers on the market, right? It's light-based technology. And light, it is part of the electromagnetic radiation, part of the EM spectrum, which I think is going to be the next slide. And it's formed by they're massless particles that travel in a wave-like manner. Those are photons. And we're able to produce photons within a laser because the way the laser is made up, the optical cavity. So I'm going to show you guys that. So wavelengths. So I was talking about 810 nanometers. That's the handpiece that we have with the Elysion. And what does that mean? That's the specific wavelength that it uses. And there's other lasers out there on the market that work for hair removal, right? We have 755 nanometers, which is an alexandrite. We have a ruby laser. We have pulse dye lasers. Why a diode in that specific wavelength is so incredible, 810 nanometers, is because it's right there in the middle of being able to treat every skin type. So it's not such a short wavelength where it's going to be unsafe for darker skin, but it's not such a long wavelength where it's not going to be effective for lighter skin. And what do I mean by that? So with wavelengths, it's these photons, these massless particles that are traveling in a manner. And with wavelengths, we can control that. We can have short wavelengths or we can have long wavelengths. Well, we also have to have consideration for darker skin types and where their melanin is in their skin. So our melanocytes, that's what produces pigment. And our melanocytes are located right at the bottom of our epidermis. So they're really superficial. That's our most superficial layer of skin is the epidermis. Melanocytes are right there at the bottom. So that's what's producing all of our pigment. For me, I don't produce a lot, but for somebody who's like Middle Eastern, Indian, African, they produce a lot of pigment, right? So if there's too short of a wavelength, then really all of the energy that you're using is really close to the melanocytes. Therefore, it can affect the skin and create a burn on the skin. So the longer the wavelength, the longer that heat penetration is going to really bypass the epidermal melanin and focus deeper where like the root of a hair follicle is. So that's why 810 nanometers is so great, because it's not so superficial where it's focused where their melanocytes are. It's much deeper where the root of a hair follicle is. But it's also on the chromophore absorption chart, which we're going to talk about chromophores in a minute, I'm kind of skipping ahead. But the chromophore absorption chart, it's still a really high peak of melanin absorption. So it's still a very high peak of wanting to focus on every hair follicle on every skin type. I hope that was, I hope all of that made sense. Okay, so short, long wavelengths, we have that controllability. Here is the electromagnetic spectrum and wavelengths. So we're using 800, so sorry, let me back up. The IPL, if you guys already have our IPL, that is the full visible spectrum, right? The colors of the rainbow, what our eye perceives color. All of those wavelengths, that's what we're using. For the 810 nanometer wavelength, the diode, that is in the infrared spectrum. So it's out of the visible spectrum. Okay, I won't spend much time on that. So chromophores and aesthetics. I put the most popular, really, chromophores, I just one out. But a chromophore is a light-sensitive molecule. So that's what we're using, right? We're using a light-based technology. So that light needs to be focused on a molecule that is light-sensitive. So for all of aesthetics, when we're using lasers, they're focused on either like melanin, which is maybe melanin in our skin, like sunspots, or melanin in a hair follicle. So that's our number one chromophore when treating for hair removal, is the pigment within the hair follicle. If the hair is gray, if it's blonde, we're not going to get a result no matter what technology you use, because that is our main chromophore, the pigment. Next one being hemoglobin. This is how like we are able to do vascular lesions, not with the diode, but within the industry. And then water. And that's how we're able to do like skin rejuvenation with our IPL as an example. So I'm really going to focus on melanin today because that's our main chromophore that the diode is attracted to. So just the difference between like a laser and an IPL. So a laser is monochromatic, meaning it's one single wavelength, 810 nanometers. It has high coherency and low divergency. So what that means is that really those photons really stick together and the light doesn't diverge. It really is concentrated, which is huge when you're treating for hair removal because it's really focused on one thing and it's focused on it really well. So we have such a high powered laser. Where an IPL is a little bit different. It's many wavelengths, which is great because if you have our IPL, you love that fact that it has many wavelengths, right? It can treat for skin rejuvenation and vascular lesions and pigment and acne and so on and so forth, hair removal. So it's heavy ROI, right? Because it can treat a lot. But it may take you more time to do hair removal, where this is going to be a huge positive for you. Okay, so and it also has divergency, the light scatter more. Now we'll go into this. Okay, so let me back up. I'll go one by one. So how does a laser work pretty much? So first you have a medium. And I'm going to break down on the next slide what a diode is. But most mediums that we know can be like a solid, it can be a gas, it can be a dye. So a solid is like we have a long pulse gag laser. That solid is it's that neodymium yttrium aluminum garnet that is placed inside the optical cavity. It could be a gas like CO2. Sure, you've heard of CO2 lasers. It's just a gas that's placed inside. Dye lasers, they just use a dye inside the optical cavity. A diode works a little bit differently, so I have a slide on that. So first you have your medium, which the diode is still a medium, so that will be inside there. Then you have a lamp. The lamp is how you get everything activated. It gives it the energy that it needs. And then you have, so that's the energy that it needs. And then you have mirrors on both sides. So you're going to have a full reflective mirror and a partially reflective mirror. And then once that lamp activates the medium inside, that's what produces electrons. And then the electrons eventually produce photons. And the photons are bouncing back and forth between the two mirrors. And once you get enough photons that line up in the same wave-like manner, which would be the 810 nanometer wavelength, they start to line up together. Once you build up enough of those, then you have a beam that is either bouncing back and forth, bouncing back and forth, bouncing back and forth. Then you have the laser light that will come out of the laser. So that's how all lasers work. You know, that's how they're built. So now with the diode. So LED, I'm sure you guys have all heard of LED, right? Most of us have replaced our old light bulbs with LED light bulbs. If not, you should, because it'll save you a lot of money. Why? Because LEDs in general can last a lifetime. And that's why they're really taking over, right? That's why we don't typically see a lot of traditional light bulbs anymore when you go to Home Depot, or maybe they're there, but there's not as many, because an LED just never dies. So when I said that you have a very high ROI with the Elysion, this is why, because it is a diode, therefore it's built to last a lifetime without it, all of a sudden burning out. So very different than other lasers out there that, things need to be replaced over time, where an LED, a diode does not. So I'm sorry, what does LED stand for? Light emitting diode. Okay. So with a diode, I was telling you that there's a medium inside the optical cavity, right? Like a gas, like a solid. With a diode, it's these two little, they're almost like, it's hard to explain, but they're like a bar inside. And one is called the N-type and one is called the P-type. And they're just stacked on top of one another. When the light flashes and releases energy, then the N-type gets excited and it releases electrons. The P-type has little holes in it and it will receive the electrons and produce photons. So very similar, it's just a little bit different on how it's working. So the P-type then releases photons and then the photons start bouncing back and forth, just like the slide before. And then we get our wavelength and then out comes the laser beam. So partial mirror, full mirror, they'll bounce back and forth between the P-type and N-type. It's just releasing electrons, releasing photons, releasing electrons, releasing photons. So all those photons start to generate. And then out comes our laser beam. So just a little different, but kind of the same. Okay, so our laser mechanism of action, like what are we really doing to the hair? And it's really based on the principle, almost all lasers and light-based technologies are based on the principle of photothermolysis or photothermolysis or lysis. Different ways of pronouncing it. Photo meaning it's light, right? We're using light-based technology, photons. And when we build up enough light in the tissue and that chromophore that we're targeting absorbs it, then we go to thermo, meaning heat. So light then transfers into heat, and then heat transfers into lysis, meaning destruction of the hair follicle. So we're building up enough heat to destroy the actual root of the hair follicle. And I have a few slides of showing how that works, but that's the basic principle of it. So here's our hair growth phases. So first we have the hair follicle. And what does the hair follicle look like, the part that we can't see? And we have a lot going on here. We have our sebaceous glands. We have our like our melanocytes that produce the pigment. We have the bulb. So we have the shaft of the hair, then the bulb of the hair, then the dermal papilla. So this part is where all of our growth cells or stem cells are located. So what's happening with this laser technology is the heat, the light, and then the heat will actually go down the full shaft of the hair and will end up right there at the bottom where the stem cells are. And then when we build up enough heat, we get coagulation and necrosis. And then in turn, the stem cell is damaged and then cannot produce that hair anymore. So that's when, of course, the hair starts to become finer and lighter and less dense. And then over time, we no longer have hair in the area. So I should have stayed on this slide, sorry. This is everything I just spoke about, but we're reaching that 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature that you'll end up being at when you get to your endpoint. And it's just traveling down the shaft. We kill the anything I missed? I don't know. We get a little diffusion around the hair follicle because it is high heat. So it travels down the shaft, ends up in the root of the follicle, and we get a little diffusion around the root of the hair follicle, which is a positive thing. It's just making sure we get to that coagulation point. When we're treating, so this is important when you're doing hair removal and how to space it out. And this is really dependent on what part of the body are you treating. Are you treating an upper lip for a woman? Are you treating underarms? Are you treating a bikini area? Are you treating a man's back or a woman's leg? This is based on the hair growth cycle. So the only time we can treat is during the anagen phase of hair growth, because that is when the root of the hair follicle is actually intact. That's when we can actually go after the stem cells. When it's in catagen and telogen, this is when it starts to shed. It comes apart from the stem cell, all the living cells, and then it sheds out. So we really have no target there. So when you look at an area, you can't know like which one are an antigen, which one's in telogen, which ones are shedding, and which ones aren't. So that doesn't matter. You just do the first treatment like normal. Then it's how to space it beyond that. So I didn't put that chart in here, but it's about every 4 to 6 weeks for the face, about every 6 to 8 weeks, really it's better to do 6 weeks, underarms, bikini area. And then everywhere else, like a back, arms, legs, is 8 to 10 weeks. And usually 8 weeks is the best because it just takes longer for those areas, a man's back or a woman's legs. It's a longer growth cycle. So it takes longer to get a lot of those hairs in the anagen phase to be able to treat again. If you treat it 4 weeks, it doesn't mean that you're not targeting some of the hair. You're just not targeting as much as you could be if you just waited the 8 weeks. Now the face, that's a much faster growth cycle. That's where you can treat like a woman's upper lip every 4 weeks. Okay, so the speed in this system is the most exciting thing. When we released it, it was, I mean, I couldn't stop talking about it because it's so exciting. Again, for the people that like really need that system that can just bust out hair really quickly in one room and save your if you have like a platform device, save that platform device for all your other treatments like, you know, pigment and vascular and contouring, so resurfacing, so on and so forth. And look at how quick this is. An upper lip is 15 seconds. A full leg is 12 minutes. Really, I timed it. It's only 10 minutes, but we're also considering like prepping the skin, putting ultrasound gel on, using your white eyeliner pencil to mark off the area. But full legs in 10 minutes. So here's a little video. I'm going to kind of skip through because this is just like prepping. And I just want to show you how quickly it really is. So this is where we can do a gliding motion. I have a couple other videos because we have like different modes that we can use where we paint, where we glide, but that's just quick, really quick, just showing you that you're just gliding in rows, and that's why it's only 10 minutes. It's one pass and you're done. It's incredible, but I have more videos in response to that. Okay, the importance of power. So I already spoke a lot about this, so I won't spend much time, but we're the only company using high power diodes. And it's not just like one diode in the handpiece. There's many diodes in there. So it's making sure that we have, you know, tons of power. Therefore, we don't have to use so much energy to the tissue. Therefore, it's a lot more comfortable for the patient, but still efficacious. We also have the ability to have very short pulse durations. So pulse duration is the speed in which you're putting the energy into the hair. And when a hair follicle really starts to, like the area, the hair starts to become very thin, very fine because you're your last treatment, having a short pulse duration, meaning taking that energy and putting it into the hair very quickly, is important, because that's really based on, and I wish I had time to go through all of this, but it's really based on TRT, which stands for thermal relaxation time. So something that's big and large, like a large, let's just take like a large birthmark or a large bruise, that is a chromophore and it's large. So it's going to absorb the energy really easily. But if it was a teeny tiny little like thin and light hair follicle, that cools really quickly. So if you're putting the energy into that tiny light hair follicle too slowly, then you're not heating it up fast enough to get to the coagulation point. So it's important to have that high powered diode to have the ability to have those really short pulse durations. So when they're at their very last session, you can get that energy in quickly to make sure to coagulate the rest of those kind of stragglers that are left behind, the harder to get hairs. I hope that made sense. It takes longer to explain pulse duration, but if you're already familiar with pulse duration, it does make sense. If not, of course, you can read about it. We have a square pulse shape, which means the delivery is very steady and very even. We don't have like high peaks of energy that are not controlled, and that's what some lasers have that create burns or create the system to be incredibly uncomfortable. Our light and our energy is a very steady, controlled delivery method. Okay, and I think gliding and painting options are important for me to discuss, and I think that's coming up in just a couple slides. I really already discussed a lot of this, but we do, you know, all of our systems, if you're already a viewer customer, you know that your system comes through your warranty. I doubt you're going to really have to use it on the system, because the system is just like one of those systems that just you can run it into the ground pretty much, which makes it very, the ROI is very high on that, right? You're not going to have problems. You're not going to have complications. It's a diode. So it really lasts forever. There's no hidden costs. There's no consumables. All of that money that you're generating is yours. We do have contact cooling. We named it Crystal Freeze because it is very cold, which is amazing. So it starts out at 5 degrees Celsius. So, you know, it's really frosty. There's condensation on the tip. And that's for a reason, right? We want to keep the patient nice and comfortable on the surface of the skin, and it helps really trick the nerve, right? Where they're feeling a lot more cold than they are the heat. So it's keeping the patient comfortable, but also when you're treating darker skin types, that's important to keep the outer layer, the actual skin cooled, so that the temperature of the skin never raises, and that the heat's going down the shaft of the hair follicle, but the tissue on the outside is well protected. So 5 to 25 degrees Celsius is the range. So keeping them incredibly safe and comfortable. Okay, so here's our treatment modality. The first one, and I have a video of it, but the first one is going to be the one I'm going to talk about first, is static mode, and then the second one I'm going to be discussing is the dynamic mode. So this is what the screen looks like here, just so you have an idea. And it's incredibly intuitive. I mean, when I say it's incredibly intuitive, I'll show you the cheat sheet, and then you'll really understand, like, oh, you know, there's not much guesswork with it. You just kind of set the system go, and you're pretty much, I never can say guaranteed, but you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to get to your endpoint just based on that cheat sheet. So when you're in static mode, you can choose between 1, 2, or 3 hertz. What does that mean? It means how fast does our system work? So 1 hertz is 1 pulse per second. 2 hertz is 2 pulses per second. 3 hertz is 3 pulses per second. So 3 hertz, very quick. It's 3 pulses per second. So that's why we can, you know, do full legs in 10 minutes. So 1 hertz is going to be good for just like a stamping technique, which you're usually not using unless you're doing an upper lip around the face. Around the face, you don't want to glide. You just want that steady, controlled technique. So that's when you're using 1 hertz and you're just stamping. Now, 2 hertz and 3 hertz, usually you're working with 3 because you want to get it done faster. But 3 hertz, I'll show you a video of how quickly you can glide and really treat a full area. The static mode is great for your skin types 1 through 3, really even skin type 4, so up to like Asian, Hispanic skin. So your lighter skin types, this is the mode that you would use. Here's the cheat sheet so you can get an idea of how easy it is. So I'll take myself, for example. I'm a skin type 2. The hair on my legs is very light, so I would be right here. And now the hair on my legs, because I've already done about 3 sessions, maybe 4, the hair is light, but now it's also, as my cursor, now it's very fine. So it tells me all I need to set, because the pulse duration is preset for you. You never have to think about it. Now all I have to do is set it to 24 joules. And then I choose, do I want to do it at 1 hertz, 2 hertz, or 3 hertz? Do I want to glide or do I want to stamp? And that's it. So I test it 24 joules. Typically, that's your endpoint, and then you move forward. If it's not, go up to 25 joules, and then typically that's your endpoint. There's not a lot of wiggle room from this cheat sheet. Pretty spot on, which is amazing. Okay, here is the video. So again, I'm going to kind of skip through the beginning. It's like prepping the skin, you know, all that stuff that you don't have to watch. Oops, I lost my cursor. What is it? So there's the stamping technique at 1 hertz. Here's 2 hertz. And then here's 3. So fast. Okay, so just wanted to quickly show you that. I know that was a short video, but so you can have an idea of how quickly you're moving in 3 hertz. Pulse, 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 pulse. You're done with that full row. Next row. So very quick. Okay, so now dynamic. So dynamic is much quicker. It's between 5 and 10. So that's 5 pulses per second or 10 pulses per second. That's very, very fast. This is lower joule energy, and it's going to be the accumulation of heat is where you get to your endpoint. So for example, on that cheat sheet that I just showed you, me, myself, and my legs, I would have been at 24 joules. With this one, the cheat sheet's probably going to say I'll be at 7 joules. So there's a big difference. How it's working is you're doing a 10 by 10 area. So you're using a white eyeliner pencil and you're marking 10 by 10 squares pretty much. And then you hit it, and at 10 hertz, you're just going on that area until the timer says stop, and then you move to the next area. So it's low energy, but hitting the hair over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, to where you accumulate, you accumulate, you accumulate until you destroy the hair follicle. Why would you want to use this one over the other? You're darker skin type because it's low energy. So you're just slowly heating the hair, and you're never having to worry about heating the skin because the energy is low. So this is great for your skin type 5s and 6s, or 4s if you're a bit nervous on them. And you absolutely get to your endpoint. Or, sorry for the males on here, usually males are not great with this kind of technology, right? They're nervous, it hurts them more a lot of times because they are nervous. So if you're treating like a full man's back, when you're using the static mode, that's going to be more of just a blast to the hair and you kill it. And if they're feeling that too much, even though it's comfortable, that's nothing I can't sit through, or most anybody can't sit through. But if they're a little bit like, ooh, I can feel that, and they don't like it, the dynamic mode, you just feel warmth because it's such a slow accumulation. So you can keep them comfortable for the first 1 or 2 treatments, then move it to your static mode. But you're making sure that you can tailor it to any patient that comes in, right? Comfort, skin type, what kind of hair is in the area. You never have to turn anybody away. So I'll show you like that, and we call it painting. So I'll show you that the dynamic is a painting technique. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like here, and I'll stick again. So, sorry, the video is in Spanish, but that's the painting technique. You're just 10 hertz, man's comfortable, just slowly building heat, going back and forth until the timer goes off. It's usually about like 400 pulses, but in 10 hertz, very quick. It's less than a minute. Build the heat, timer goes off, go to the next spot, do it again. So that's painting, which is actually a lot of fun to do. Both of them are fun too. Okay, so again, taking myself as an example, I'm a skin type 2. Now my hair is fine. So there you go, 7 joules, huge difference, 24 to 7 joules. So now you can see why your darker skin type, it's so much safer of just slowly accumulating that heat. And then you would treat me at 10 hertz and it would be about 400 pulses. So it tells you, exactly what to set on the treatment screen. And there's really not a lot that you have to do beyond that. It's usually spot on, which I love. By the way, our spot size is an 18 by 10. Didn't mention that, but you got to see how big it was. And now here are some before and after photos. Let me think before I go into the before and after photos, if there's anything that I kind of wanted to hit on a little bit more. I guess I covered it all. And I want to open it up to questions too. So if you guys want to write in your questions, you can even unmute yourself and ask questions on this. But if I, maybe didn't mention something, I spoke about how often we're treating. How many treatments? It's typically about 6 for most all areas. There's a huge noticeable difference after 1. I mean, they definitely don't question if this works or not. You'll get to see in the before and after photos endpoints. You can see how beautiful the endpoint is. And the endpoint for hair removal, it's perifollicular erythema and edema, meaning there's redness and swelling around each hair follicle. So that's what you definitely get with this diode laser. So here's one before and after photo of a man's abdomen. He's someone that you probably would start dynamic. You never know. Sometimes they're bichromatic, but you know, males. Man's back, again, probably dynamic. Abdomen. Here is actually one of our employees that when he's demoing the system, he demos it on his forearm. He's from Argentina, so naturally has a lot of hair. And he demos it on his left forearm. He doesn't care, it doesn't bother him. So he always likes to show, like, you know, after 6 treatments, what it looks like, how smooth it is, 0 hair compared to the right side, which it works. I mean, it sells itself because, you know, you can visually see it in front of you. And then here's that beautiful endpoint that you're looking for with the diode laser. That perfect swelling, the perfect little red dot around every hair follicle, almost looks like a breakout, right? But that's what you want. That's when you know, okay, the actual hair has been targeted properly, because it's the hair, the actual follicle, that's holding onto the heat. That's why you have swelling in that area, and that's why you have, obviously, erythema, redness. Endpoint on an abdomen, endpoint on a neck. This is great for men that have horrible, like, ingrown hairs on the neck area, especially like your skin type 6s that suffer from that because their hair is a bit more coarse, maybe curly. Men that are just sick of shaving their neck, this is wonderful for them too, because it's comfortable, you know, and quick, comfortable and quick. They're in and out. That's it. I covered that fast. That's the fastest webinar I've ever done. But yeah, I wanna open it up to any questions that you guys may have, either write in or you're welcome to unmute yourselves. And you know what I forgot to do on this PowerPoint is how to get in touch with Fiora, just in case you don't know how. But it's going to be info@sinclair.com. So that's our email, or our phone number is 888-415-1192. Again, that's 888-415-1192. You can always call. And then, of course, we have Facebook and Instagram, and it's Sinclair for Instagram. It's Sinclair _ Fiora Med. And then for Facebook, it's just Sinclair Fiora Med. So you can always direct message us as well. But any questions that you may have, info@sinclair.com or info@fioramed.com. That's maybe if you're already a Fiora customer in the past before Sinclair acquired us, and now we're Sinclair, you may have used info@fioramed.com, and that will work as well. But any, you know, if you want more information on it, pricing, things like that, feel free to reach out to us and let us know that you're on the webinar too. They may be like doing something special for the people that were on the webinar, so that would be important to you know, mention and bring up.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I wanted to ask you, because I noticed, you know, you're using the 810, the diode, and there's the Alexandrite and the combination of the
blend. I didn't get to talk about that. Thank you so much.
Just want to,
yeah,
I'll listen and then ask my question if it's still there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, okay, the reason we were gonna have a handpiece that was just the Alexandrite, the 755 nanometer. The reason why we didn't end up bringing that to the market is because the Alexandrite is just known to give complications, especially to darker skin types, because the wavelength is shorter, so it's not in that like perfect zone of the 810 where it's safe for darker skin types, but it's also very efficacious for light skin types. It's that perfect wavelength. So that's why we ended up not bringing the Alexandrite. It's just the burn cases that you can get with an Alex. Now the blend is really created for its 755, 810, and 1064. So with that combination, the high powered intensity isn't just focused on the 755 where it's going to be, you know, it's not going to be safe. It's really that energy is split up amongst 3 wavelengths. Where that's going to be really amazing is, again, like offices that have those darker skin types So let me back up. Viora, we sell platform devices, right? Usually in the past, we didn't sell standalone. So now we're wanting to offer those standalone systems for reasons of like just being able to, do hair removal really fast and not take a lot of time. So on our platform system, though, we do have a 1064 nanometer wavelength laser, which is the Nd:YAG. And the Nd:YAG 1064 is also part of the wavelength of the blend. What the 1064 is created for within the industry and why we have one is to really treat only dark skin, because the 1064 is not going to do anything for lighter skin type hair removal, but it's primarily just focused on your skin type 5s and 6s, sometimes skin type 4s for hair removal, but very, very safe. So with the blend, we have those 3 wavelengths where the power is divided between all 3. So you're able to be a little bit more aggressive on your darker skin types, and it's going to be incredibly efficacious for your darker skin types as well.
I wanted to ask you because one of the pictures you put, it showed 1064 with 2 other wavelengths right next to it, besides the diode and the Alexandrite. So it's more than one wavelength.
Yes. So the diode that they are putting in that one handpiece, so it's going to be multiple diodes in one of the optical cavities. One of the diodes is set to produce 755. One of the mix of diodes is to produce 810. One of the mix of diodes is to produce 1064. All 3 wavelengths coming out at the same time.
Okay.
So I'm not sure date on that on the blend, but they're talking about it being pretty soon. Although you will not be hung up on treating every skin type just the 810 too. It's more like if you have a lot, like your huge patient population is that darker skin type, that you would need that blend for extra safety. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to talk about it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I guess that's it. So I just want to thank you guys all so much for joining. Again, if you have that interest, please reach out and contact us. It's an amazing system. I couldn't be more happy to have like this high-powered, amazing, super speedy, super fast, super efficacious hair removal system, especially for like the offices just need that room going constantly, producing revenue for hair. Because hair can be time consuming and you just don't want it to be. And you really want to free up like your other rooms and your other systems to be doing other things. So super excited if you're in that boat right now and like really wanting to like get that system that will make you a lot of money quickly. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thank you.